Yesh lomar, I think we'll start again in this concluding paragraph. Yesh lomar. It's an expression saying that there is absolutely room to say. Zehu gamkein. Now this which we have finished discussing now, even from ohrot and keilim, the qualities of both, and ultimately concluding that there is a supreme element in keilim over ohrot. That this too is alluded to in Yashakosov, in what it says in Posek, Vayichan Shom Yisrael Neged Hahor. Yisrael there encamped Neged Hahor, facing the mountain, and the comment in the Gemara is Kulam Ki Ish Echad. All were Ki Ish Echad, as one individual person. So, in the expression Kulam Ki Ish Echad, there are two elements, two implications. On the one hand, they are individual people, quite separate. But then, at the moment of Matan Torah, they all became like one person. It is like joining many disparate entities. If there was no separate entities, the term kulam all would not be applicable. On the other hand, if they each stood in their own mindset, it would not be ki ish echad. They would each have their own reason and their own attitude to what is occurring. Here was kulam, the many, ki ish echad as one. So what is it to do with what we learned? The inyan ha'yischalkus, where the principle of hischalkus, of separation, of subdivision, of the fact that that their awareness and their sense of reality is all different. Each one has his own sense of that reality. These differences is due to the keilim. It's from the perspective of the keilim. Since that from the perspective of the nefoshes, kulam masimois heim, they all masimois, they all fit together. The fitting together on the shomis, on the foshes, is masimois does not mean they cooperate. They understand each other. It means they unite seamlessly.
While remaining distinct? Or they merge into one?
They don't merge. There is no distinction, even though they are different ohrot, different nefoshes. This is one of the difficult things that we will try to speak about. Masimois means they fit together perfectly without having to negotiate that relationship. Ukmoi bechinas ha'ohrot, as this is true, bechinas in general, the foshes are like ohrot, like in the bechinas ha'ohrot, in the bechina of ohrot, shehem pshutim. The ohrot are essentially pshutim. Pshutin means without distinction, without definition. And thus, there is no, among the oiris, there is no subdivision. Similarly, as by neshama is be'etzem, in essence, shemashima is hema. Now they actually fit together perfectly, as I said, in a simple sense, in a simple manner, without effort, without negotiation, bipshitus, seamlessly. The ischalkus u'mitzadakei, and the ischalkus is the subdivision, the distinction. The distinction is mitzadakei because of the keilim. So now we will try to put this in perspective and understand what the implication here is. Were you on yesterday?
No.
I mean, you only started yesterday. Actually started from the same place yesterday. We are on the concluding paragraph on page Chavdalet. The line the fourth line from the top, from the paragraph, and begins with the word be'etzem. And he's saying that the whole phenomenon of distinction means that each entity has a distinct presence. Despite the fact that they're all perhaps serving the same thing and aiming at the same end, but they have a distinct presence. This is mitzad hakeilim. But the oiros, there is not a distinct presence, even though there are differences in the oiros. They are bipshitus. The ischalkus, the distinction between entities, is mitzad hakeilim. Even in the shomish, even in we're talking about living human beings. The fact that two people are distinct from each other is not due to their nefesh, their nefoshes. It is due to the keilim. In this context, it would be the seichel and the midas, but the nefesh itself, there is no distinction. There is no distinctive presence. Again, I'd like to use an extremely simple moshel to understand the concept at first. We always speak about a table, and we say that what is the principle of the table? What kind of presence is it? It's a whole structure. But what is the principle of this structure? It is the top board. This is what a table is. And then this table has 4 legs in order to maintain this board in place. Each leg has its own place and serves its own position. distinct of the other. In that respect, they are distinct entities. But then, where did they emanate from? What is the concept of these legs? Are they distinct concepts? It emanates from the exact same source. The table board it demands and it states that it has legs, and each leg is a representative directly of the top board, not representative of itself at all. So there are these two elements here, which we're referring to, which are identified from a conceptual perspective as ohrot and keilim. Ohr means the Indian that the board is supported at a certain height. Is not distinct from the board itself. That's what this board is all about. It should be suspended at a certain height. Otherwise, it's not a board of a table. As one views the board and conceptualizes the board, immediately the union of being suspended and being supported, it surfaces, so that the concept of there being legs is not a distinct presence. Oh, there is a leg, there is a leg. No, there is only one entity. There is the board that is identified as a table. And this is why, and this is why it's suspended, because this board has been identified as a table. But then, in order to facilitate this suspension on the outside, not on a conceptual level, but on a practical and a functional level, on the outside in the world environment, you need to put means of suspension. You need to put boards up to hold up this board.
You need to put legs up to keep it the right height.
To keep it on the right height. So from the perspective of the oil, what these legs are, where these legs are stemming from, there is not a distinct source for each leg.
Where they're coming from is not a distinct source.
It's one single statement that this is a table board. Therefore, there is the support
needs to be supported. So
needs to be supported. And all the same support. Each leg is. But then, when it comes down, when this support is being identified in an external environment. What kind of environment? An environment where the concept of the table is not understood. In your seichel, you understand the concept of the table, and therefore the fact that they have four legs, you don't have four legs, you have one suspension means nothing. But then, when you bring it into the world, where the whole concept of table is not understood, it's not known. No. You have to bring it there to the keilim. You can't explain the floor that this is a table.
At this practical level, they have to come to be keilim. How is it called?
We can only represent the table in the world through keilim, through the keilim of the table.
You can only represent the table through keilim.
Mm-hmm.
The leg is like a keli as opposed to the oil of what the table is.
Suspension,
concept.
yeah.
Okay.
Right. So here, in the keli level, there is a distinction between one leg and another leg. This leg supports this side, this leg supports this side. So here we have, although one leg without the other does not constitute a table. So there's a necessity of four legs. This necessity, this identification that actually have four legs, not one leg, is when you have to represent the table on the outside. But in a concept, there's only one concept of suspension of the table, of the board. This comes directly from the concept of the table itself. The same is in the Nimshal that we're talking about over here. That there's neshamis, and then there is distinction amongst people. It's not the neshamis. The neshamis represent what they are meant to be. Not by means of seichel, by means of midah, by means of all the koiches.
Again, from the perspective of the neshamas, they are just what they're meant to be.
Right. To put this more pointedly, it is true that a human being has two legs and two hands and two eyes and two ears, and he's got a mouth, and he has a brain, and he has a heart. Now, looking at the human being, the fact that he has two legs, is each leg an addition to what the human being is? Or is it simply an emanation of the full human being, of the essence of the human being?
Unless this question is...
The fact that he has legs, not only legs but two legs.
Does that come
is that change his definition of this? He's a human being. Now he's a human being with two legs. Or two legs is part of the definition of a human being.
Part of the definition of a human being. We said by the table that the specifics of the legs were not really part of the table, just that it should be there. It could have one central table, the leg, it could have three legs, but the details were not part of the table. Just that it should be at the right height, that was part of the table. That was the important driving principle. The board should be the right height. You need one middle leg, you need three, you need four, that was later.
That was later to bring the table concept into a worldly environment.
Right. So to the human being at the outset needed to have two legs.
Okay, so now once Let's bring this back together. Now that you see a table standing, what does that represent to you? A table or a board with 4 legs?
It's a table.
Okay.
Table.
So, through the keilim, you see what the essence is, what the areas are.
Right.
I'm saying the same thing is in the human being. Human being has a nefesh, and then the human being has all kinds of different koiches. Like I said, he has 2 legs and he has 2 hands, a brain and a heart. These are individual parts of the human being. But what do they represent? What do they represent as so to speak, additional entities in the human being? Another leg, another hand, or this all together? Are they all representing the same principle, the same oyer?
Saying that all these details are unified back into one principle.
They're all drawn from the same principle. Let me explain this even perhaps more down to earth. Legs are made for the person to be able to walk from place to place. This principle that a person can walk from place to place, is this an add-on to the person? Or is this part and parcel of a complete human being? When God created the world, He created all the magicians. He said, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth." Fill the earth and capture the earth. Subjugate the earth. That means that a person on a conceptual level is meant to be everywhere. This being everywhere is expressed on the lowest physical level by 2 legs.
Okay. I'm trying to think back. So the nimshal here is that these keilim are this Paltiel in the oyer.
The nimshal is that the distinction is on the keilim level.
Okay.
But from the oil perspective, is kulam asimis, subshitas. What does distinction means? That's the right leg is able to it supports the right side. The left leg supports the other left side. Each one has its own function. The same is on a macro level. 2 human beings represent 2 nefoshes. What's a nefesh odom? Nefesh odom is whatever it is being dynamicus into the world. But then, in order to be in the world, it has to be translated in koiches, in seichel and midas. The human being cannot be a human being without knowing what a human being is. Within the worldly context.
A human being cannot be a human without knowing what it is, what that is in a worldly context.
Right. Like we say at time.
Otherwise he'd be like just caught up with all his keilim. He wouldn't know.
No. You would be on a higher level. You would not be in the world. It's on the nefesh. He said a human being is supposed to drink from a cup. That's on the keilim level. In order to be in the world, he has to come down into the keilim level. But mitzad the nefesh, what the human being is essentially as the Torah describes it. Capture the whole world. This is the human being. The means by which it's accomplished, that goes already in bringing the human being into keilim. And at this point, two human beings interacting. How do they interact? By negotiating on the seichel level. You take this side, I take this side. You do this, you do this. It doesn't come automatically, an automatic flow. At that point, they're distinct entities. Are you losing power?
Yeah.
This is the pshat his helpers. And the fact that there are ain't they same shores, their das, their self-identity is different one from the other. Distinct. Everyone understands the seichel, understands the concept of standing or walking or doing and talking differently.
In how's the lashon over there? In man.
And they say him Shabbos.
They say him Shabbos. There goes on das.
Deya means a das. What is a das? Das is not the chokhmah, the awareness. Das is the clear knowledge what it means to be a human being.
In Shavan, wouldn't that high resolution of what it is to be a human being, wouldn't that be all in agreement?
The agreement is through negotiation. The agreement is not a straight flow. Yes, mitzad the nefesh it is, but when it comes into keilim, it has to be understood this thing, and each one has to understand it individually.
That's almost to say he has to work with his own seichel, his own experiences, his own predilections.
Yep. Although mitzad the nefesh, they fit together perfectly, seamlessly.
If they fit so well together, they fit seamlessly. So how do they get on? Why don't they stay on the same page? Because they come.
It comes into the keilim. You have to come into a world where this is not the pshitas. This is not a simple presence.
And that's a kind of a galus, so that's the way the process is meant to go.
That's the way it's meant to go, and the Yeshua brought the forces into the world. Go back to the table. You have a concept of the table. But in order to make the table stand in the factual way, it has to be distinct. Board and four legs. And four individual legs. Each one serving its own corner. Let me put it, I just thought of this concept, this principle. You go into the 770, you go into the street, you see a lot of people. Oh, there's so many people here. So many people. This is like a discovery. So many people. It's at the nefesh. From the perspective of the nefesh. Is there any kind of discovery that there are many people? Let me put it perhaps more tangibly. You walk by an apple tree and you see an apple. Oh, see an apple. They're finding this one apple. And then you find another apple. Oh, there's another apple. Oh, there's another apple. Once you know this is an apple tree, that tells you that there are many apples here. Because they're there because of the tree. Not each a self-creating an entity. From the keilim perspective, you say, how many apples do you have? But from the principle of yes, this is an apple tree. If it's an apple tree, it by definition has many apples. Not only has many apples, it's limitless. Each season it produces another crop of apples. The definition of what it is, not by actual separate creation. This is the meaning. Each apple is an entity unto itself, from the perspective of the presence of the apple. But the fact that such a thing exists, it's the keilim, it's the ohrot, there is no distinction. As many as there are, it never exhausts what the potential is. It's not the discovery. This is the concept of pshitus. Pshitus means it's simple, it's obvious. It's there because of the essential reality, not because of itself, of the presence of the apple. It's part of the apple tree. This is the how it is inside the ohrot or inside the keilim. This is the pshat. Vayichan Shem Yisrael neged Nahar. Yisrael means kulam ki yesh, all Yidden were like one entity. This is a tremendous distinction, difference. That because they intentionally on the keilim level they should be individuals, but at Matan Torah they were like one entity. There was no additional presence. The fact that there is another person here. Kisha. This is on a much higher level than on the presence. Okay? Now we are trying to get into shlichus. There is not a meaning, right? Not in the beginning.